I recall, even backing up into January, I recall having heard, we were at a Christmas event, but it was after Christmas, it was in January. We had a Christmas event with family, and we were watching some of the news and some things.
Mid-February, I had a trip planned with my mom and my daughter to go to Gulf Shores, Alabama. And then at the same time, being excited about that, but paying attention to the news and going, look at these cases are rising in all these big cities.
So we have quite a few clients that work at the hospitals. So they had kind of like, hey, FYI, there's this thing going on. Oh, okay. Meh.
The first that we knew we had to shut down was March 13th, Friday the 13th, I'll never forget.
It was definitely a thing that I just kind of kept hearing about, and of course, like, it started with like the toilet paper shortages and all of this, and it's like, okay, come on, people, are you serious? Like, what is actually going to happen?
And we had a small conversation about it and nothing else. Fast forward early March-ish.
The 11th or 12th, and I called Tammy and she said business went just screaming downhill, and it was just
Scary.
And I was helpless.
Well, I think that I truly remember it was like the early part of March that they were talking about possibly things happening. And then as it got closer and closer, and then it was, I think that second week in March that Governor Evers said, we're going to shut things down.
And watching it come from New York and move this direction, I mean, we knew it was inevitable.
There are markers to everyone's life, events that affect us all by tragedy or through human endeavor. Often these occasions are a collective experience where a singular date signifies celebration or reflection. Then there are cultural phenomena that unfold and affect different people at different times, because things like paradigm-shifting events don't adhere to anyone's calendar. I'm Lisa David Olson. And if there's a reference point for the pandemic of 2020, it's the saying attributed to Mario Murillo, if you're going through hell, don't stop. And really, if you think about it, through is the only way to get to the other side. Whether by intuition, experience, or blind self-assurance, there are some for which survival is not mandated nor expected, but pursued and earned.
My name is Allison Krish, and I'm the Assistant Director at the Pump House Regional Arts Center, and I started in October of 2020. So the pandemic was in full swing and processes were already in place when I came on board.
Sonia Lee Pennell, Burn Boot Camp, La Crosse, Wisconsin. We brought Burn Boot Camp to La Crosse about 5 years ago.
Fun for Pets has been around for 9 years this November. Had some highs, had some lows, but definitely plan to continue.
Maria Norberg, and I am the owner. I've owned Grounded for 10 years.
I am Sarah Schwartz. I'm the general manager here at Grounded. I just hit 5 years last week, actually.
Did you get to pick out something out of a catalog? Your 5-year anniversary?
I should.
Why didn't we?
That's a great idea.
For 10 years. 10 years we'll do that.
Oh, okay.
Jody Wiedock, I'm the Executive Director at the Parenting Place. The organization was founded in 1990.
Chris Roderick, owner and chef of Piggy's Restaurant and Uno Vente.
Tammy Roderick, owner of Piggy's Restaurant and Uno Vente.
Piggy started in 1980, and it was located over on Front Street. And then in 2001, we bought it from the original owner, so we are the second owners in 41 years.
I'm Nikki Balsamo, and I am the Artistic Director and owner of La Crosse Dance Center. The lineage of La Crosse Dance Center goes back to 1938. For a number of decades, it was passed from teacher to student. In 1983, my parents, Colleen and Tony Balsamo, took over as owners of La Crosse Dance Center, and then I took it over from them in 2015.
My name is Steve Rose, and I am a part of this lovely business of George B. Rose Incorporated, otherwise known as Rose Jewelers. My grandfather, great-grandfather, when he came here, La Crosse was in 1858, I think. There was 2,700 people in La Crosse.
One reason there's no definitive start date to the pandemic is because it affected us all so uniquely depending on our job, business, or life circumstance. From a psychological standpoint, traumatic events create recollections with vivid snapshots of the moment and details. This leaves us with an emotionally charged, detailed version of what happened. Psychologists call this a flashbulb moment.
So now this is March 16th. I remember getting home about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sitting on my couch, turning on the news, and our president was on there. And he had said, if you own, I think he said, if you own a restaurant, a bar, if you own a gym, we need you to close your doors. And for, I think up until that point, it was, that would never happen. You could never close your doors for 2 weeks.
It was a Monday, March 16th or 17th, whatever day that is, when I realized, yeah, it's today. We gotta shut down and send people home.
March 24th was the day we had to close. We were told that Tuesday was going to be the last day. And so we pulled everything from the cases, put everything away, and so the store was empty, the windows were empty, and we didn't know how long it was going to go for.
I think there was a sense in the air that we were maybe approaching something unknown, even though, none of us could have known how long it would be.
At the time, I think we really thought was going to be like a
Couple weeks,
yeah,
maybe a month.
All of a sudden we went from 90 dogs to 30 dogs, like overnight for daycare. And I was like, okay, well, it's only 2 weeks.
Okay, it's 2 weeks. We can do 2 weeks. We can absolutely do 2 weeks.
Hey guys, we're getting 2 weeks of chill. We're gonna do extra cleaning, kind of that was the thing, made a huge checklist of all the extra stuff that we could do during those 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks turned into 3 weeks.
2 weeks became 3 and 4 and 5 weeks.
we'll probably be able to have full capacity, like 4th of July. We were optimistic, this is gonna be, maybe by 4th of July, maybe even by Labor Day, everything will be back to normal. And my God, here we are almost a year later.
We'd be watching the news and it's just like, what is going on here and stuff, and then talking with Tammy and even, those days kind of building up to the big climax, I guess, or whatever, it was like, what is going on?
Stability gives us all a measure of control over our lives. Our toilet paper shortages weren't merely a lack of bath tissue, they were proof of uncertainty straight out of left field. The biggest psychological blow that the pandemic dealt to us all was the realization that control was beyond our grasp.
There wasn't anything that we had a point of reference to say, oh, that's right. 10 years ago when this happened, this is what we did. We didn't have anything like that. Oh, I did have an old folder that said pandemic planning. It was from H1N1 days. And when I pulled up the materials, nothing really connected.
Right, exactly. Pandemic was never on the board. And I definitely did not learn about that in my pedagogy classes or anything in my college experience.
Every week it seemed like there was something new that we needed to educate ourselves on, educate our clients on, and try and just communicate to everybody what was going on.
Things were changing, it seemed like almost every week at a certain point, different, the goalposts were always moving.
You have to, if you're gonna be here for the community, you have to be doing the right thing. And sometimes I didn't even know what the right thing was. I did not know what the right thing was.
Going in without any idea of what were the best choices to be making to keep everyone safe.
All the rules got rewritten.
We would get a plan in place and then something would change with guidance from
the government from the county or whatnot, and it seemed like our plan was kind of like washed away, and we kind of had to start from scratch again. And that seemed to happen a number of times in a row.
In all of our lives, one decision begets another. When businesses closed their doors, we couldn't sit in theaters, restaurants, or classrooms. However, the domino effect of the shutdown was that people found themselves dealing with decisions most of us never had to face or even consider.
You know, it's how do you face, well, for one thing, your employees.
And so then you had to become the person breaking the news to people, knowing it affected their lives too.
Yeah, that was the worst. To have to tell my staff, you don't have a job right now, that, and I don't know when you will. That was one of the lowest points I've ever had to deal with, ever.
It was hard. It was very, very hard day.
That was the hardest meeting we've ever had.
Ever. So a lot of crying, a lot of crying. A lot of our staff, this isn't their home, so their families weren't here. So they were like fish out of water. Like, all they had was us and looking to us, and we were helpless with how to guide them because we didn't know either. It was hard.
We laid off 71 employees with the shutdown, and like Tammy said, I mean, there was some crying, and it was not easy. Even though the governor did mandate us, I mean, it was just hard because again, what are these kids going to do? I mean, this is their livelihood.
Talked to a couple staffers that I knew lived with elderly people, and I said, do you want to be laid off? Yes. Okay, great. So just started to whittle things down a little bit. Again, just thinking, all right, next month we'll be back up. Next month it'll be fine. Then next month came, and fine was no longer the word to use. It was, now what?
Personally, it was so weird, so strange to just come in and see La Crosse was just a ghost town.
Once the revenue's lost, you can't get it back. So
Our revenue comes from ticket sales and membership and donations. So ticket sales was our greatest income. So when people aren't experiencing the Pump House and they're not at a theater performance, there are less donations. And that was something that we didn't plan for because we had never been in a pandemic before.
We're at a point where we can still pay people and not have to worry about it. You know, you still have the assets to be able to do that, but those assets don't last forever. And if it's going to be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you know, all of a sudden that starts to pinch.
One day I looked at Sarah and I'm like, we need to make sure we're viable on the other side of this.
The lowest point business-wise was last summer because we were not collecting our income, tuition, and we weren't sure when we would be able to do that again on a regular basis. So that was when financially we were struggling the most.
You know, I had enough in savings to cover all of our expenses for 2 months. But now we're at the end of month 1 and I'm kind of looking at it going, numbers aren't going back up. What are we doing?
We still had to pay the rent and the electric and all of our overhead didn't go away just because we weren't taking in our monthly income.
Oh my gosh, I don't even have enough animals on site to pay the rent.
and it was like the 15th, and the 16th was horrible. And at that time, I am begging Governor Evers to shut us down because we're bringing staff in not knowing, and I mean it was horrible. Begging him to shut us down, and then obviously on the 17th it did, and so that was somewhat of a sense of relief. So we're just losing money now. We used to hemorrhage money, you know. I mean it was so bad. I mean just the sleepless nights and.
I always knew on some level we'd be back together in person, but it did feel like it was getting further and further away from us for a time there.
And I was so proud of the board of directors because it was them who said, well, let's guarantee staff that they are not going to have any changes in their paychecks for X amount of time. I don't remember what we determined, and that would be drawing from our reserves.
We made sure we secured all of their email addresses, and I just updated them, I think, every day for the first 2-3 weeks on.
I actually hired somebody to just be a runner. She works 5:30 to 7:30. Her whole job is just to go out of the lobby, grab the leash, come in and transfer it over.
We knew that we needed to continue to find ways to connect. And so we would have, through Zoom, wine nights. And so we would all get together on a Friday night over Zoom, of course, and have a wine night where we just connected about anything and everything, what was on our mind, what was going on in our jobs, were we working, were we not working, the kids driving us nuts, like all of these things that we got to do. And so we really came to feel that right now, it wasn't as much about the workout as it was connecting the people. And we needed the people. We did not want anybody to feel left out. We didn't want anybody to feel that no one cared about them.
The first thing we did was we had to respect the decisions that our staff was making of like, I'm not comfortable doing this.
And a lot of that decision too was staff that were just very fearful and uncomfortable being in a situation where, what if I get COVID?
That, and some people just weren't comfortable coming back and going and being around other people outside of their households.
Or staff that said I would, but I'm living with my dad and he has this ailment and it's not worth it for me to do this and to potentially bring something home.
Any information that I got, we passed it on to them, and just tried to let them know that they weren't alone, obviously, and we were here, and if they needed to talk or whatever, because we continued to come to work and do what we had to do, and we'll support the staff as best we can, and that's all we could do. And
thank goodness we're a small staff, so everybody just came back and worked those first 2 weeks. It's just a good thing to get back to work. Everybody was chomping at the bit to get back to work, so it worked out for all intents and purposes. It just gave us a good reason to get things going again.
Neither one of us could have done it alone, but always her focus with my support was what is best for our staff first and foremost, and then how does that affect the customer. And certainly we care about the customer always, but these people, our staff, are working 7-8 hours a day, and they're having to deal with the normal things of how do we make the customer happy, make the drink, follow through everything, and then on top of that having to, as people would word it, police. We don't really like to use that word, but to say, hey, we're all trying to do our best to get through this. And my staff got beat up left and right.
That emotional toll on all the staff was pretty heavy. I feel a lot of the staff now have shifted as well with COVID of what their priorities are. So now I need to make sure that I can support them in those endeavors as well.
As the leader, you only have 5 minutes to address, and your own fears are, you have to go, because your entire life is built around these businesses.
We're not going down without a fight. We are going to give it 100%, and we are going to, and if we bomb, then we're belly up and the bank owns everything or whatever, but we were not going to fail without a fight.
There is no time and there is no answer for my husband and I that said, I can't do this. I can't do that. Could not be our mentality. And
the number one priority is like, what can we do and what do we have to change to make sure that it can still happen?
We had met with our leadership team, and we just went through, this is our plan. We don't have all the answers. We don't know every single thing, but this is what we're going to do.
I pulled together my strategic team and we made a plan. We got out the great big white paper that sticks on the wall, and
we're gonna hold out as long as we can. We're gonna try to figure out what we can make work. We'll make adjustments if we have to, but we wanna make sure that we can keep people employed as long as we can and make sure that we can stay in business as long as we can.
we assigned duties and thought about what do we need to take care of.
I don't know that I know the word give up. I really don't think that's in my vocabulary.
When we talk to places like gymnasiums, of course, they switched classes to Zoom classes and tried to do creative things.
So we closed all of our gyms that night.
We did a hybrid method. So we had dancers in the room.
My husband and I took Tuesday to get big TVs delivered to every location.
Whatever the max was for the room, those number of students would be in the room.
Additional laptops, additional speakers.
The other students would be online at home on Zoom.
So we made all those trips on between Monday night and Tuesday to get everybody set up so that Wednesday we could open on Zoom.
It takes a lot to keep a historic building running, even if there's no people in it.
We didn't do very much programming in the summer because we were really using that to research how we would get back to in-person and what that would all entail.
When schools canceled, I launched a 3-week kids train your dog program. We had 11 kids sign up, which I thought was great. I thought, oh, if we get 2, that'll be awesome. And then my 9-year-old taught the classes.
I know somebody that had a store, they were doing curbside.
The first thing we did was we shortened our hours.
Trying to do curbside lunch, which was dumb.
And then we just kind of turned everything into like takeout.
We were doing curbside dinner on the weekends, which was dumb.
We actually were at an advantage in that we had already been set up on Eat Street for delivery.
I can't imagine you can do curbside when it comes to high-end.
Well, John was doing that to some degree. People were, they'd ask to see something, that piece they had seen, and John would run it out to them. And
I mean, it was just a waste of time. It was.
Yeah, but it's not the type of product that you can do that real easily with. So.
Resilience is the ability of an object to bounce back after deforming, or in our case, experiencing adversity. Resilience is perhaps the defining trait for human advancement. It allows us to be changed by experience and then use that experience to move forward.
I don't look at things as I failed at it. I look at it as, ooh, need to adjust and do better, do it differently, revamp it. And that's really what you have to do.
We have built an outdoor stage, or a stage that's portable, and we take it outdoors to perform. And it's sprung, and the dancers then can dance safely on concrete or on grass or wherever we want them to dance.
We too did shift and did virtual theater, and that was a learning experience. We did that with 21, and we did a call to writers to write something on the theme of 21. Very, very broad subject, and that could be anything. And we then did a call to actors to act out those pieces. So, how did you connect with your actor? Because you wrote a piece for 21.
To write a piece out of my head, it was a story I made up, and then to have Diane Breezer act out her interpretation of it, as well as what Anne Directora interpreted, was such a thrill. I watched that, and then seeing my friends' writings, it was something that wouldn't have happened in person because I had no choice except to submit and wait. And I'm not great with that. So it taught me a little bit of patience, and then the excitement of the unfold. So it was really like opening a present.
I knew once COVID was lightened up, we were going to be extremely busy. People traveling. I mean, if I used to do 90 dogs a weekend for boarding pre-COVID, I knew it was going to be bigger after COVID was over.
So we would like to do a tour of maybe the area parks starting next summer.
Prior to the pandemic, families would walk in, let us know how many diapers they need. We take them to the diaper inventory and say, take what you like. We can't do that when we're virtual, when the building's locked up. At a time that was going to be incredibly stressful for families, a pandemic, all the unknowns, we had to figure that out quickly. It took lots of brainstorming to make that work. It went from a just walk-in service to contact us, let us know what you're looking for, place your order, and then come and pick it up.
So I created a doggy daycare, shelter, grooming program to teach facilities how to train their staff. So we did that all of COVID as well. And although nobody was really hiring a whole lot in the height of COVID, now it is doing great. We're adding more and more modules to that, customer service modules, veterinary modules, and that has become a whole separate business for me and a revenue stream for me, and at the same time is helping our industry be better.
Parent educators realized, oh, we can use Facebook to continue our programming. And I think the first one was Muscles in Motion, which is normally an in-person activity or a program that gets kids moving.
Our point of sale system has an online ordering system that we then talked with our people, and we've got that activated and going. And we just did a little social media thing. Hey, here's what we're doing. Uno Vente, online ordering, here's the link, and you go from there. So we did it Friday and Saturday, and it had been active since midnight of that Friday. And I came walking in, and the printer, the tickets were all the way down to the floor. Every half an hour I'd come over and check, and the tickets are more and more. I mean, this thing was just, it was going nuts. I think it was payday, so a couple people came in for payday, and Tammy said, hey, do you want to help? And so then they came and helped. And when we opened at 4 o'clock for the curbside, and the cars were from the front door all the way down King, Front Street into the back parking lot of Piggy's, and it was pouring rain, and they were waiting. I mean, that was huge for, you know, our mindset, for the staff to see the support from the community.
I have yet to see a time when our community doesn't rally around each other.
But I think people, by and large, want to help people, and they want to see those little businesses survive.
We distributed over 110,000 diapers in 2020. So that's one of the success stories of the pandemic, actually, is not only how we adapted the program, it's how the community supported the program.
So Viterbo Fine Arts Center worked with us really closely. It's always a great collaboration, but it was really a blessing to have their help while we were figuring all of that out this year.
People keeping their Burn Boot Camp membership for us was so impactful. They would not understand the impact of what them doing these little things throughout this entire pandemic did for the local business here. And I can tell you, if you never get a thank you from one of those businesses, I guarantee you they thank you from the bottom of their heart, because they know that it was you that helped to drive us through this whole thing.
Truly, when COVID hit and I had 30 dogs here, I would tell you at least 10 of them didn't need to be here. Our clients made that choice to keep us open.
We also received a very generous anonymous donation that helped us be able to produce the Nutcracker as a streaming experience.
I don't know that we would have made it through last year if we didn't have this patio. Even over the winter, we had customers that came out in the winter. There was that one week where it was like 30 below and they didn't, but we would have customers that would come out and they would just plan to bring a blanket and a warm coat, and they would sit out here in the wintertime. There's a group of 3 guys that would come and they'd play cribbage outside in the wintertime, because they're like, hey, we can be outside. That's what they say is cool. We'll come outside, we'll sit on this patio and make it work.
Doing baked goods, like, it was just so great to see that it wasn't that we just cared for their dogs, that we were all family in that sense. And truly that's what this community is all about.
During the pandemic, we had members and community members come in and donate to the pump house with the intention of coming to a show after the pandemic.
There were a couple of regulars that would do like big orders for people that they knew were working, and they would take lunch over to other people, and those like big lunch orders where it was like 9 to 11 different like lunch orders like really made a difference for us in those days. And it wasn't even so much about like the numbers, it was just like, these people are doing this for us. And they would always come in and be like, you guys are doing great, like keep it up, we're trying our best. And we're all trying our best, like we knew that, but it was nice to hear it too from some people. So
they brought us groceries, we got ramen noodles and mac and cheese, because we talk, you know, a lot of my clients are like, how are your staff? I'm like, well, I'm buying groceries for my staff. Like, I'm trying to make my staff not go outside a bubble.
We are so fortunate with our customers and our regulars, and even during that time that we were closed, there were different ones that would reach out. I know I got a letter in a mail from somebody just saying, hey, this is, I know, a really tough time, but keep it up. You're doing great. We're here for you. And like those little things, oh my gosh, made a world of difference to just feel like we're not in this alone. And, you know, customers that keep coming in and that are patient when we're maybe a little short-staffed, or understanding when we might be out of something. I mean, it made a world of difference for people to be understanding and appreciative, because
it really was, last year was rough.
We're really excited to get back to live performances, to have the energy of the audience and have that connection and that excitement, but also because when we have a performance, it's an experience. So when the audience comes out to see the show, they oftentimes go to dinner before or maybe go for a drink after. And so they're spending money locally in our community. And of course that money can be used for paying people's wages, but also for programs, for taxes, so that we can do repairs on the roads and keep our community a great place to live.
There is something special about being in the same room and laughing with the person sitting next to you. So people wanted to experience that after the pandemic at the Pump House. So we're so grateful that they thought of us, you know, when everything was shut down.
At the end of the day, like, it's not the Amazons that are going to carry us forever through the future, but it is our little local businesses that will still be here, and they will still be standing for us when we support them. And La Crosse stepped up.
Any customer we thank dearly, because without them, you don't have a lot to rely on. You know, I've been doing it for 55 years. The kids, John started when he was 16, Jordan, and he just turned 40. So I mean, we've stuck our livelihoods into this. And we appreciate any little battery that comes in. You have to tell them, thank you.
Ultimately, those that take a path through their adversity survive to tell the tale. Where there are stories of struggle and uncertainty, there are also sagas of deeply felt gratitude and shared triumph. There may be different narratives with unique reasons and seemingly individual efforts, but the overarching story belongs to the city of La Crosse, its culture and heritage, and every one of the qualities that moves us forward.